Anyway, let's talk about some shit that I'm going to save it for anybody that doesn't live their life over this shit and doesn't know what the ratings are this week. We're going to save that till the end. But this was the week that the blind squirrel found a nut. And AEW for February 22nd, for those of you keeping track, again, they've got a lot of talent under contract in term numerically, quantifically, the quantity of them, they've got a bunch of them. And you would think that they'd have something else put on the show except for what they did. But as we found out when we went through the roster, just they have a lot of guys doesn't mean they have a lot of stars. But the opening match on the show was the contest for the A&P title, the belt they made up when they were going to take over. What all countries did they put in the Atlantic that aren't in the Atlantic? They were going to take over all those countries. And
I think Japan.
Japan and points south, Indochina, Bulgaria, Tunisia.
Australia.
There you go. So Pockets, the company mascot, is defending against Wheeler Useless. And I wasn't sure, obviously, for the kind of people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like in terms of Pockets. He's a babyface in this environment. Remember when first it was Daniel Garcia, comes out of nowhere, not really ready for the spot from a personality standpoint and experience green in the ring, but you can't fucking get rid of him. You can't overlook him. He's everywhere. He's El Kabong. And then they settled him down, and then old Wheelie came into the picture. And he was the darling boy, and you couldn't get away from him, and you couldn't see around him, and he was on everything, and they loved him. But now, since he's with the BBC,
the BCC,
the Blackpool, it would be the BPC, Blackpool Combat Club,
well,
or
Blackpool's
the Liverpool. Oh, that's true. And somebody said, actually, now from England, they said Blackpool is more noted for ballroom dancing than fighting as just a city not involved in wrestling, but just as a general term. But anyway,
Alan Blackstock from Blackpool.
There you go.
The Baron of Blackpool.
He's a noted ballroom dancer. Every time he comes in a room, he's dancing around. His balls are hanging out. It's incredible. But anyway, so then since he's with them and they're heelish now because old Moxley's become a heel, I get now old Wheelie, they did a long promo over his entrance with him telling Pockets off to his face, and gee, he makes Jungle Boy sound like Liv Schreiber. Just the whininess. So, but he's a heel now, I guess, because I was wondering about that. But nobody works like a heel. They just, well, Wheeler ended up doing it after Claudio came down and slapped him in the face. But point being,
you thought Wheeler was a heel here?
Well, yes, because at first the match consists of them starting out doing what all the indie wrestlers think is mat wrestling, all the chain stuff, and it's completely fluid, and nobody's actually trying to snatch and grab a position or an advantage. It's the flawless rolling around like choreographed tumbling on the mat that they've learned because they can't replicate Billy Robinson and Tony Charles's and the classic World of Sport guys' toughness and wrestling ability and raw-boned, fucking manliness, but they can roll around and simulate those moves. So every indie wrestler thinks that's what the mat wrestling is. They do a bunch of that along with the fancy flipping until Claudio comes down and slaps Useless in the face, and then he grabs Pockets and throws him over the table and turns the table over on him, and now the crowd hates Useless. And I hated both of them. But yes, so then he became the heel. Did you not notice? Because he still looks like such a nice boy.
I thought you were kind of saying you thought he started as the heel.
No, but he is the heel in this position, whether he was wrestling like one or not at the start, because all these people like pockets. And he had just whined at him, so he was an annoying fuck, was Wheeler anyway. But nevertheless, this match, I had to say, okay, they've actually put this thing on first, and I said, certainly it probably won't go long. Well, I was wrong there. But I watched this thing to see if this guy has anything to show for himself after all these years of being a fucking dipshit. And no, at one point, he put his hands in his pockets and stood there while Wheeler beat the shit out of him. And Taz even said, he better take his hands out of his pockets. Apparently, they have cornered the market in AEW on the audience that wants to laugh at and make fun of wrestling. God forbid anything is ever taken seriously, and we need to just be silly and laugh because this is a fun night out for the, not the kids, there's no kids, but I don't know why anybody would like this bland, nondescript idiot doing phony fucking shit in the middle of a supposed professional wrestling match.
You could say what you want about the rating, and we're going to talk about that later on, but the other interesting thing was, tell me what you think, but other than a few hot crowd segments during MJF stuff, this is the hottest crowd they've had in quite a while for Dynamite, don't you think?
Yes, these people, they loved, and where were they again? Were they...
I don't remember. I was hoping you remember.
No, I think they're still out west. Possibly it was out in Phoenix. They haven't, I don't know whether these people get out a lot then. But yes, the people in the building, however many of them there were of that, loved almost all of this shit.
Phoenix.
And
they were in Phoenix.
They went through, there you go. Well, the Phoenix will rise from the ashes. They must have been smoking before they came in. But anyway, they went through a break and they come back again. Anybody else besides the current AEW faithful, when you look at this, it looks so outlaw. It looks so childish because you got, one guy that, as you said, looks like that fucking superhuman clown on YouTube with no physique, and nobody's ever heard of him 6 months ago. And he's attempting to wrestle this fucking guy that looks like, a assistant at Jiffy Lube with blue jeans and a haircut of some description. Bleh. And it just looks like kids wrestling. It looks like
when they traded the forearms in the middle of the ring.
Oh God.
That's where what you just said, that's where it really stood out. Like, look at how they're just playing with each other. That's what it looked like to me. Even though the people they were screaming, it wasn't about what they were actually doing.
Yes, it wasn't what they were doing. They just liked the idea of him doing it. Because, Wheeler was trying. His looked like shit, but he was trying. But Pockets was just raising his arm and going through the motion because he's lazy. I don't know. You could train chimpanzees to have this match because there's no facials. There's no emotion to it. It's, we're going to roll around and do this. At one point, Useless held Pocket's hands and stomped him like the Blackpoolers do. And then they both stood up, still holding hands, and Pockets just came and hugged him. And so Wheeler headbutted him. And now we've established that the babyface is a complete moron. Wouldn't children even think this is silly? So that's why I say they are their section of fans, and this is the section of fans that the Buckaroos created, just want to go and laugh at wrestling and think it's supposed to be silly because that's what their product is. And it's disheartening, but also that's why there's a lot more people watching the other channel because it may be boring, but at least it's not unprofessional. So anyway, then they spit on each other, and then they did the fake forearm trade. I've made a note that Pockets' forearms wouldn't have tipped over ain't Lola. But then they start hitting moves that should kill each other, especially with their scant body weight and frail frames, and they didn't sell anything or even go for a cover. And then finally, old Wheelie got a 2 count with a pile driver. And then the other clown does Roman Reigns' finish. So he reminds everybody every time that the biggest star in wrestling is not there. It's this guy.
It's like Adam Page's and Logan Paul's finish.
Well, there you go. And finally, Pockets beat him with Roman Reigns' finish. And at that point, Pockets wanted a hug, and Claudio came back out and called Wheeler out, and we were 23 minutes into the show to have to sit through that. And I don't care whether their audience likes it or not, because their audience likes almost everything, as we've established. But their audience also, when they were shown it, liked MJF and Punk, and liked FTR and the Briscoes, and have liked the good matches that they have intermittently been given. So it's not like they refuse to look at the good shit and just like the silly shit, but why do you have to contaminate your program with silly shit that will run anybody that is not currently actively watching off like, what the fuck? This is kids wrestling. Is this Nickelodeon? What is this? And that's, it's because of the Buckaroos and their ilk, their clique, their group, their treehouse boys club, whatever you want to call it, that they cannot get anywhere. Because their problem is not only are they showing shit like this on television, but that their fans react positively to it, so they do more of it. Instead of the good shit that their fans also react positively to, but they don't do more of that. Because that's not the fucking bailiwick or the wheelhouse of the EVPs. Your thoughts?
I would have sent a Tony Schiavone or a Renee Moxley Good or one of the other people there out as soon as this match was over to announce, we're coming back to Phoenix next month. These people were ridiculous. They were super into this. I mean, I say that in the best way, because this is what every wrestling promotion dreams of, a crowd like this that's eating everything up. I guess maybe the movie theaters are still closed. I don't know what's going on there. Hot crowd. The match didn't do it for me, because even when I try to watch it, like the forearm spot really stuck out to me because it was a close-up. And I'm watching these guys try to wrestle a physical style. They just can't.
Can't.
I understand they're trying. I'm even looking past the gimmick right now. I understand they're trying, but come on. And, World of Sport, at least there were weight divisions. You know what I mean? Like, Adrian Street was small, but look at his forearms. He knew how to fight.
Well, besides his fucking chest was, as wide as everybody else's, he was just built that way. He was squat. But, my God, again, Adrian wasn't even the classic example, because a lot of people will point, well, he skipped around the ring. Yeah, and then he'd take you down, and he also could really stretch you and do all those things because he was a shooter. But it's not even the weight division. It's the lack of trying to appear professional. Nobody has ever been able to explain what this fucking goofy fucking Orange Cassidy gimmick is, or why that it has stayed what it has for all this time, and how that it doesn't make the business look like a complete joke, and how anybody that would be a fan of the WWE or a lapsed wrestling fan from the Attitude Era, or any fan of any kind of wrestling that doesn't want to laugh at the business and make fun of it, why they would enjoy something like this. And so that's what limits them to this indie wrestling bubble that they are going to be in. And that's Tony's mindset too. Because he likes these guys as friends, he thinks it's cute. let's move on. Because one of the guys that we have said, boy, if he could just get some consistent TV time and a nice little push, Ricky Starks comes out to the ring, looks great.
This segment.
Wearing a suit. Contract was about to fall out of his pocket, but nevertheless, he comes, and the whole thing is he supposedly plays a mind game, reverse psychology, whatever you want to call it, and goads Chris Jericho into signing a contract to meet him for a rematch by coming out and saying that he doesn't want a rematch. And he knows Jericho doesn't want a rematch. We're moving on. But I've got an open contract for Revolution.
Hold on. He said, we're moving on, and the place popped.
Yes.
They were happy. Finally, he's moving on from this Jericho feud. This is an unconventional way to end the feud. Just coming out and saying, you know what? If you actually think about it, I already beat him. I'm kind of done with this. I'm just going to be doing something else. The greatest way I've ever seen to end the feud. The place pops. They swerved me. They ruined my night with this, but go ahead.
Well, I did for a second think that as something actually else was going to happen when he said that, but he did a very good promo, very good presentation of the concept of this. Who wants to sign this open contract? Of course, Jericho music. And he comes out wearing a fucking spiked suit that looks like a pincushion and a porcupine had a baby. And then he comes in and says, well, I can beat you anytime, but I'm not going to because you're not at my level. So he doesn't want the match. And even this, in the middle of their shit where they're trying to make a point and trying to sign a pay-per-view match, they can't resist being silly for no reason. Because while Jericho's standing out there, they play music, and that fucking Peter Avalon fucking moron, it looks like Ron Jeremy in the 80s if he lost 100 pounds and most of his dick. He comes out and fucking to accept the challenge while Jericho's doing the fucking promo and Starks is in the ring, and Jericho just knocks him out with the Judas and he lays there. So comedy for no reason in the middle of this that wasn't needed just because they think they're cute. I don't know.
It was a Jericho thing. Jericho's wrestling him this Wednesday on Dynamite.
Oh, good God. Well,
hey, where's Action Andretti?
Will go, well, that's good booking.
Where's the guy Jericho made? Where's Action Andretti? Whatever happened to that guy?
Have you checked YouTube or potentially the fucking YMCA, the homeless shelter? Anyway, so Jericho gets in the ring and Ricky Starks goads him finally into thinking that he's coming up with the idea for the match, that he wants to have it, and then finally he does the pin click and signs the thing. And so now we got that match on the pay-per-view.
Why? They still haven't explained why. What was this entire segment? I'm coming out here to say, I'm moving on. I've just decided to move on. The place pops because they're ready to move on from this stupid feud. Another one of the endless Jericho feuds. I have an open contract. Now, first of all, he's not a champion of any sort. So what is that? I mean, do wrestlers just, I have an open contract. Anyone who wants this open contract.
Well, see, it was all part of his plan to hoodwink and bamboozle Chris Jericho.
To get revenge for beating him?
For beating him. Yes.
Simplicity is the best thing to go for at this point, because this is ridiculous. Peter Avalon running out there reeks of Jericho, and of course they're wrestling this Wednesday on Dynamite. Ricky Starks, they've done no favors for Ricky Starks.
Wait a minute. Again, let's go back, and if anybody is a wrestling fan that's past the big two companies and has seen anything from Ring of Honor, MLW, or any of the other promotions, folks, Peter Avalon is going to be presented on national television against a former WWF champion, while some of the talent that you've seen in those other companies, and there is some there, toils away in obscurity, chained in the bowels of a slave ship, and nobody ever fucking sees him. But Peter Avalon, because they think he's funny, I guess, and Tony Khan signed him 3 years ago. He's been there since the start.
He's had multiple gimmicks. He's the wrestler they've recycled the most.
He's made me take multiple gimmicks to have to watch him, I'll tell you that.
They got Ricky Starks.
Hey, Kevin Sullivan.
That'll be his name in WWE. They got Ricky Starks red hot with MJF. To the point where, if you ever want to talk about an audible being pulled, that, looking back now, that may have been the one. Forget Danielson. Let's try to find a way to extend this. Instead, they went right into the Jericho feud. And everything we said would happen has happened. He beat Jericho, so Jericho say, look, he beat me. Does anyone remember that? Why are they still feuding then? All these guys he has to wrestle week after week, guys that people don't care about. This coincides with the ratings going down. People were relieved that Ricky Starks was done with Jericho. And instead, they're having another match for no good reason.
Well, speaking of a match for no good reason, they next had, and I want to reference this, we'll come back to it later, but they had comments from all the tag team, not even all of them, but some of the tag teams, in the tag team battle royal later on. They didn't put graphics over that. You wouldn't know who some of these people were. And they've come up with 10 tag teams that are all going to be in a battle royal and vie for an opportunity to go against the champions and the former champions in a 4-way at the pay-per-view. And I know what you're saying. Well, that's only 3. They're going to have another battle royal this week for another. God, I can't make this up.
You know, speaking of tag teams, I got to look into this. Someone emailed the Drive-Thru. I'm looking at it right now. Did AEW thank every single Observer winner except FTR?
What, that's like, I know? What are you?
Apparently, I got to look into this. Apparently, AEW on social media congratulated everyone. It says here, including the Briscoes, they showed a picture of and congratulated them for Feud of the Year without even mentioning FTR. There's something interesting.
It's an interesting oversight. Probably just a clerical error, probably. But speaking of the tag team champions and former champions, the Acclaimed, top of the fucking buttermilk run, they were pitted in this program against the stellar tag team of Lee Moriarty and Big Bill. And yes, we've said they need to get some fucking wins to try to rehab their image with the fans in terms of in-ring competition after being defeated by the Gun Boys. Will, I think, now go down in history as the fastest ever from debut of professional career to World Tag Team Champions of a national television promotion.
Well, I don't know. Well, the Road Warriors.
What World Tag Team title did they win first?
The World Tag Team title. They won the national tag team titles?
No, I'm talking about World Tag.
I know. In my head, I'm trying to go through the year.
Oh, well, actually, but they were on TBS. Okay. Besides the Road Warriors. Road Warriors were quicker. Point is, these two green teams, they're trying to keep them afloat after they pitted them against each other. And so the Acclaimed needs wins, but again, I don't know whether they need wins like this. It's Big Bill and Lee Moriarty. Stokely Hathaway is in the corner. And remember, I've said work-wise in the ring, I thought Bowens is usually ahead of Caster, but in this case, Caster starts out and he's nice and sharp. He hits a good arm drag. And they cut him off in 30 seconds. Boom, and they set up a blind tag, and they hit a double team, and they go to the break in 1 minute. So when we come back, I guess all the heat was in the commercial break, because we come back and old Big Bill misses a charge into the turnbuckle, and they make simultaneous tags, and they've been back within 45 seconds. So basically, we didn't see much of the body. There was no body of the match, and we didn't see what was in the commercial break. Bowens makes comeback. Big Bill stops him. Okay. I said before, the first time I saw when who was he? Cass Elliott?
No, he in WWE?
No, when he first he appeared in AEW. They brought him in one time, and you didn't see him again for a while.
Big Cass? Was it Cass? But they couldn't call him...
that's when he was William Morrissey.
Morrissey.
Before he became W. Morris. No, that's before I think they had the whole... Well, nevertheless, under another name, he comes in the first time. I said,
Why isn't he Big Bill Morrissey?
Well, because they're idiots. That's what I'm fixing to get to. I said, well, everybody liked him because he was in front of them, but I was like, he's blah. He needs to work on some shit. I wasn't that much impressed. But he has worked on some shit, and he does look better physically in his work. But he's a big guy wearing blue jeans, and his name is Big Bill. How much more boring can you be? Why does he wear blue jeans? What is his? Is he a lumberjack? Is he, are you a warrior, an errand boy? Why,
Yeah, maybe if there was regular time with the manager in front of him making Big Bill a thing where every time he says it, he points to him or something, but there's nothing.
Oh, golly. Well, he would need a manager for that. Oh, I forgot he's got one. Stokely. Never told us dick all of shit about who Big Bill is, where he came from, what his fucking problem with life is, and why he's fucking pissed off. So anyway, the Gun Boys suddenly came out and attacked Billy right after the comeback and everything, and then the Acclaimed ran them off and then stopped Moriarty, and Caster hit him with the elbow off top, 1, 2, 3. So they're getting wins in name only, but they're not actually showing that they're good wrestlers. It's just they come out, they run a couple spots, somebody interferes, somebody else does something, they scissor and fucking whatever. But that's what we got in this company, is everybody is going to run in or be involved or hang around without any explanation, and it confuses the various issues. Any comments before we move on?
I think we need right now to get them back to where they were, more rapping and shorter matches, wins. Very short matches.
But how could a match be any shorter than this? They showed 45 seconds on one side and about a minute and a half on the other side. It was actually a 6-minute match. It was just all in commercial. If you're only going to air under 3 minutes of the match, don't take a break in the middle of it. It's just...
Here's another thing. I understand plans had to change because of everything that happened at All Out. But apparently Stokely was figured into things. I mean, that's the way it looked. He was tied in with MJF. MJF apparently was about to do something with CM Punk before everything else happened. Stokely would have been tied into that. Plans had to change. I mean, Moxley wasn't originally planned to not go on vacation and do things. He had to fix things. That's what Booker of the Year did. There was nothing better they could have done with Stokely. This guy was going to be in a main event program or around it. And instead, he's just a manager wearing funny outfits each week?
Well, apparently he can't manage to manage. Somebody ought to manage that. Maybe he's being mismanaged. So Tony Schiavone was on the entranceway or the ramp or the stage or whatever. He introduces Christian Cage. And as soon as Christian comes out, Jungle Boy comes flying out from the back and jumps him and kicks the shit out of him and goes to concerto him. But as he does that, he gets conflicted. He's picked the chair up over his head, and there's Christian laying there on the chair, motionless. By the way, Christian is. And Jungle Boy pulls the chair back, and then you see it on his face. He gets conflicted. He has a change of heart. He's human. He has compassion. I wish you saw that on his face. You just saw him go, and kind of turn away like he was dejected, like Mom forgot to put his fucking pudding in his lunchbox. But then finally he goes, oh shit, I'm going to do it anyway. And he draws back, and that's when Christian reaches up and just punches him in the dick. And then Christian hit him with the fucking chair right in the head. And it looked good. And then he got on top of him and ran his head into the chair, which this looked nice and violent, about 5 or 6 times in a row. And then Christian gets up and walks in front of the camera and glorifies to the people and walks away from Jungle Boy. It's because they, I'm sure, had a meeting about, we're not going to fucking see this one on fucking camera this week. So they didn't. Christian provided the coverage for about 30 full seconds while Jungle Boy got up the nerve to apparently look like he bladed himself with a paper clip. And he got a pap smear, as the boys used to call it back in the 80s. He must have been scared shitless because, and the thing is, dumb shit, if you had someone that was capable of what they were doing with the sleight of hand, he already should have had it when Christian punched him in the dick and he dropped the chair. If he'd have pulled it right there, and Christian grabbed that chair and gave him that backhand shot with it, if he'd have rolled over and got it right there, then when Christian started running him into the chair, and also if he'd have gotten a suitable amount, then it would have looked like he was bashing his face bloody into the chair. But he waits until Christian's bashed him 5 or 6 times and then walks away because it took him 30 seconds to get a pap smear. And then he's laying there and the announcer, oh my God, poor Jungle Boy. While it looked, I've had pimples that gushed more profusely. Your thoughts?
Yeah, poor Jungle Boy. He's an idiot. This was 2 weeks of angles. Let's just say that first of all. Jungle Boy should have come out there, got his slight revenge, knocked Christian down. We don't get to hear Christian talk. Then next week, Christian gets him. Because now, once again, the babyface just looks like an idiot. What was he doing? Why do this? Why do this? This is the dumbest feud.
He came out to start a fight that he didn't want to finish.
It was like they did, again, you could have ended it there. It would have been perfect. And instead, it's this again. This is the worst feud. There was so much stupid stuff on this show between the Ricky Starks Jericho thing and this and Danielson's veiled threat. Or not veiled threat, idle threat, I guess I should say. I don't know. This was terrible.
Idol had nothing to do with it, darling.
Jungle Boy looked like a badass for like a split second. I got my revenge. I kicked the shit out of this guy. Now I'm just going to hang out until I get my ass kicked. So you forget all about that.
And then he goes to put him away, and then he turns into a pussy.
That's the thing. If he had left on that, left on being a badass, that sets it up perfect for whatever you want to do next week. Then have Christian come get him. Build this thing up instead of it's still Christian versus the moron naive kid. How's it still that? Just wait until Luchasaurus. Where's he? Wait until he pops in the middle of the match or whatever they're going to do.
Didn't they sue him over the mask?
Well, they didn't sue him. Someone sued him, not AEW.
Well, no, I'm just saying they, meaning I don't remember who it was, but somebody sued him over the mask or whatever. And I guess he can't. If I was him and had the matches he's had, I wouldn't want to go out in public and reveal my true face either.
Maybe he'll change into a bird or some other kind of animal.
A pterodactyl.
Wrestledactyl.
There
Luchadactyl. 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 See, no one could sue him now except us, but we would.
And we would.
No, I'd let him do it. You could have Luchadactyl. Luchasaurus.
Yeah, if you start calling yourself Luchadactyl, we won't sue you.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'll sue you for impersonating a wrestler. All right, speaking of wrestling impersonation.
We won't sue you, we'll sue Tony.
The next match was Saraya versus Sky Blue. And I was feeling like at this point in the show that I was watching a WWE product because of the match times on the, well, they had to get all the indie-rific goo puddlers out of the way the first 25 minutes of the show, so now all the other matches are like a couple minutes, but in this case, we didn't want any more of it. Saraya won in a couple minutes, and then Baker and Hayter came out to keep Sky Blue from getting painted by Saraya and that whole, yeah. And then we got Bryan Danielson at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. And again, the people love Danielson, and rightfully so. And he did an in-ring promo, and it was a really good recap of everything that MJF has done to him. And Bryan is the rare indie darling wrestler that can actually speak with emotion. And I'm not putting him down by, it's not his fault who some of his fans are, but he gets speaking with some emotion, and he's a great, performer in the ring and, on the microphone, as we've said. And so this should have been bulletproof as a segment, because then MJF is coming out. And of course, at the appropriate time, his music interrupts, comes out with a serious face. Brian, tell me what you thought about MJF this week from either a promo or a wrestling logic standpoint.
I mean, I'm a big MJF fan, as I've expressed many times here on the show, and it's only because his segments end up traditionally being the very best on the show. His promos are the best. His matches, whenever we actually see him wrestle, I've liked those matches typically the best on the show, whatever pay-per-view they were on. Him and Darby, to me, is still a classic that opened the show a couple years ago. I think this entire Danielson feud has been a miss, and I think there's not just like one party to blame or anything. It's just, it hasn't worked. I don't think Danielson has worked. It worked when he was a heel. We can't keep saying that, but for the last year, I think everything with Danielson has been a miss. I don't care how many good matches he has.
They put him in the group and made him one of the boys, and he stopped speaking because Moxley can't get off the fucking microphone. And he became, instead of a premier individual, a guy in that group of people that's being shoved down our throat.
It feels like MJF, I mean, this is what, the second week in a row? Maybe, I guess second week in a row, but it's not the first time it's happened where it's gone right to like some personal story from the past. And obviously that's a big thing for wrestling promos and it works. But he just did it like a week ago, like 2 weeks ago. It was this girlfriend in the car, and now it's this other girlfriend who broke up with him.
Well, yeah, and it also, personal stories from the past work when they can be applicable to the situation at hand.
Well, that's the other thing. It's kind of like I have this, it seemed like it was like, I have this thing I could say out here. How am I going to tie it to Danielson? And Danielson's not going to give me much help, which is what it seemed like. Because at one point, I mean, not to spoil anything because you're going to keep reviewing it, but at one point, what I said before, the idle threat, he says, if you say anything, I'm going to kick your ass, or whatever he said. I'm going to stomp your face in. And then MJF just kept talking, and Danielson stood there and let him walk casually in the ring.
Yes, he did the exact thing that Danielson told him not to do for a while. But okay, let's back up here. Because here's the thing with the MJF promo, couple of issues that I have. Number one, he is so mad at Danielson that it's like Danielson owns him, lives rent-free in his head, as the kids like to say. He's too mad. He should be, in a lot of cases, the same material, but just from a standpoint of the cocky heel motherfucker that's trying to get into this fucking... He looks at Danielson like a fucking nerd wrestling mark kind of guy with a happy family and loves to work and wrestle for the fans and all that stuff. MJF, again, is in a position where he's the fucking 20-something-year-old making tons of money with the belt. He's dressed great. He ought to be getting in these other guys' heads and talking about...
They need to be mad Danielson's...
Yes, to get the babyface mad at him, then you can show some weakness Danielson can bring out. It's because he's insecure, but MJF shouldn't be out there having a meltdown. And he definitely shouldn't be saying, well, I've been thrown away like trash by anyone who's ever loved me. I met a girl who convinced me that every human being wasn't bad. And I proposed. I got down on my knees. I said, I want to spend my life with you and give me my children. And then she left me. And they start chanting, you deserve it.
Do you see Danielson's face while he's saying all this? He's
yes, just... but I think he was gobsmacked. But the thing is that MJF was taking heat off himself by giving the people something to laugh at him. You deserve it. Yeah, fuck you. I'd have dumped you too. Ha, ha, ha. They're not getting mad at him when they're laughing about something bad that happened to him. except they wouldn't have known that bad thing happened to him unless he told them. It's like he invited one of the baby faces to come out and beat him up right in front of those people while he's trying to be the hot heel world champion. He should be talking about the amount and quality and variety of pussy that he's getting, while Danielson, the fucking nerd, the wrestling mark, is stuck at home with a wife that probably tells him what to do because she's a bigger fucking star, and he's probably changing the diapers on that little fucking crumb snatching rugrat they've got running around, while I'm fucking everything from 8 to 80 blind, crippled, or crazy. If they can't walk, I'll drag them. And I'm making all the money, and I'm on network television, and you, Danielson, are just a fucking soon-to-be, again, retired house husband.
I have no weaknesses. By the way, kryptonite. Yeah, that's what this was.
Yes.
I agree with you about playing up the rich thing. Tony should go license the fucking, remember the old poster, Poverty Sucks? Fucking do that.
Yes.
Give it to MJF. Play up that shit. Like you said, you don't have to be Ric Flair, but Buddy Rogers wasn't Ric Flair. It's a certain type of thing to give off. It wasn't, I don't want to hear about MJ's emotions for a while. I really don't. I want him to piss other people off, and they want to get to him, not he's really upset.
And then when somebody does get something over on MJF, the top heel champion, going into the pay-per-view, that's when he gets mad and loses his composure, when he's humiliated or embarrassed in some fashion, or something that means a lot. His brand new Burberry fucking suit or whatever is had a bucket of yellow paint turned up on it or whatever. He gets mad at the opponent that does it to him. He doesn't give the fans a freebie and announce that an ex-girlfriend took heat off of him, and we didn't even have to pay to fucking see it. And then again, his promo, he started out so mad and so violently angry. And your wife and kids, I hate you because you've had more head trauma than anybody, and you're still in my sport. At least he said sport this week instead of business. But I didn't. He was saying that wrestling was more important to Danielson than his family. And, that was somehow an insult to MJF, and he's got to get the knock on Regal in. Worthless, drug-addicted mentor William Regal, you're worse. It went on long. It was the wrong, I thought, temperament for him to have. And again, he should be saying, I've got everything, and I'm going to deny you what you want most. And maybe even more than your wife and kids, because you're a wrestling nerd and a mark for yourself, whatever. But that's where the Danielson came up, because he said, I'm going to speak now directly, Bryan Danielson, to your kids. And Bryan says, if you do, I'll kick the shit out of you. And everybody pops. And then MJF is on the floor, but right outside the ring, and he turns and talks to the floor camera and talks directly to the kids.
While Danielson watches.
While Danielson watched, and and he said, kids, I'm going to make sure Dada can't play with you again, can't pick you up again. And then finally, MJF works his way into the ring and says he's going to give Danielson, the ultimate gift, early onset CT, boom, and Danielson nails him. But I'm surprised. MJF is going to ruin his voice if he keeps doing this. And I don't know whether he's feeling like the burden is on him and this company to get the only serious heat, try to sell a pay-per-view, and he's trying too hard or whatever, but he's got to pull some of it back for when it means something. Because like you said, again, the Danielson thing, this would have meant so much more as Bryan Danielson was coming off that hot single run a year and a half ago instead of being buried in a group of yeah.
And it's not really working well. So why pour more stuff in? Like, why not just run him over with a truck next week? It wouldn't matter. It's just not working really well, I don't think, this thing. But now I will give him this, and hold that thought. Then when they had the fight, the pull apart and the break looses and the fans going nuts and the security hitting, that was the first really, really good part of this whole program. Why is it a 1 hour match?
Well, therein lies another problem. Because, again, mark booking is we're going to have these two guys wrestle each other, and what kind of cool stipulation can we put on it? Have they ever had a match to this point yet?
I'm not remembering one, but I don't know. I actually don't know.
Well, just the fact that we can't. Mark books, here I've got these two guys that are going to go for the title. What kind of cool stipulation can we put on it that will make all the other people who live on message boards and fantasy book along with me think would be great? And they just jump to that. They haven't had them. Why is it an hour? Because they gave a reason, because MJF wanted to prove he's the best, not Danielson or whatever the fuck, but it doesn't. That's their mark reason. Bookers would say, okay, these are two of not only my top names, but also my most dependable guys, because Danielson is rarely, a headache or a problem for anybody, doesn't miss matches, doesn't get injured that much, thankfully. And MJF, except when he was going through his contract situation with Tony, always produces in his matches, doesn't no-show anything, so these are two of my top performers, and especially MJF, I hope to have him for a while. So I'll figure out a way that we can get 2 or 3 major matches out of a program between them. First on pay-per-view, because it's first time ever, got to pay to see it. Second time, we might do it in a few months on television with a disputed finish to lead to another pay-per-view rematch blow-off, which might very well be a 60-minute Iron Man match, marathon match, whatever they're calling it these days, because that way they could have set up some reason. MJF fucks him and retains in the first one. They get the rematch on TV finally after months of negotiations, and then they do the screwy goddamn dusty finish or whatever the fuck. I'm not talking about throwing the referee over the top rope, but some type of finish where, because it's free television, nobody could claim they were cheated out of their money. Some kind of screwy finish where both guys claim that they won. And obviously you don't switch the title. So in the end, somehow the decision goes to MJF, but that opens up Danielson to be allowed a rematch and pick his fucking perfect stipulation of how he can't be denied or fucked around, which, since he's the greatest in-ring technical mat wrestler, whatever the fuck in the world, there's no way that MJF can beat me more than once or multiple times in the same night, and he can't outlast me, so we'll have a 1-hour match, most falls in an hour. That's my ultimate match and his true test, and then you switch the fucking belt if you want to, because you've gotten almost a year out of that shit. But
how much time did you spend thinking about that before you just booked that out?
Since you brought it up 45 seconds ago or whatever it was. Because that's not even difficult. Details in that would be more difficult, but the fucking outline is not that difficult. Anyway, speaking of being difficult, they had a 10 tag team battle royal. And the winner, as I said, gets in the tag team title match, the 4-way at the pay-per-view, along with the champions, the Guns, former champions who used their rematch clause, the Acclaimed, and the winner of the battle royal we're going to have this week in a 4-way for no apparent reason. And again, look, when we talked about the Wrestling Observer Tag Team Awards, but look at the tag teams. Felix and Penthouse, the Jericho Appreciators, the Flunkies, not even the top guys, Dork Order, Ozzy Oldham, they flew all the way over from Australia, apparently, to get fucking thrown out of a battle royal in 4 minutes. Tony Nese and Arya Daivari, Sean's brother. Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. the Butcher and the Baker, the Puddin' Gang, and Top Flight. And again, that's not exactly a list of Demolition, Hard Foundation, Rockers, Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, Road Warriors, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, Fabulous What. And there was no introduction. They just rang the bell and all jumped in and started fighting. And this will be the most exciting battle royal we see until next week on TV when we see another one. And this fucking thing went through 2 breaks. It would not, because I was fast forwarding, because come on, seriously. If you look at the teams that I just mentioned, okay, there are people that like the Lucha Brothers. Once you've seen it, but people like that. The Jericho appreciating flunkies, no. The Dork Order, even if they do win, nobody thinks they're going to win the fucking belts. There should be competing for a tag team title. Ozzy Oldham, Nice and Daivari we never see on television except in positions where they're ridiculed and beaten in seconds. The Butcher and the Baker, my God, if it was going to happen, it happened 3 years ago. The Puddin' Gang, again, same thing, ditto. Top Flight, okay, a lot of people like them. They're young and upcoming. Maybe they might win. Or Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, the only 2 guys that have actually not only have major league reputations in wrestling from being on national television previously and with larger companies, but in Jay's case, one of the current best workers and all-around performers on the roster, and Jeff, obviously, as we've talked about, the most experienced and has the most knowledge. So why couldn't we just have had Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal against the Lucha Brothers or Top Flight?
Oh, that would have been good.
And get somebody over instead of this fucking fiasco. And they had Zippy the Giant Pinhead saving, Jeff from elimination, and he would catch the guys and throw them back. And, but again, literally the only serious talent in the match, why did you need the other 7 teams if you're going to, and they put Jeff and Jay Lethal over? Because when you think about it, the Guns, the Gun Boys, the Acclaimed, whoever the fuck else out of this list, because there are no other teams, so I assume same teams are going to be in the Battle Royal next week. Who's going to lead that fucking fiasco on pay-per-view? I'm not saying that Jeff and Lethal are going to win the belts. I'm saying somebody has to be in there to make sure they don't all have a nervous breakdown. So that's probably why they did this. But again, why not have just a tag team match and get somebody over instead of everything that happens here is a mess or by heel tactics or random chance? Who got over in this? Anybody?
I skipped most of it just because the very nature of it. You look who's in the ring. Why am I supposed to care? Who's the star here? No one. No one. Not even the Young Bucks are in this match. They've got their own universe. They're in the Codyverse, doing their own thing on Rampage. I had no interest in seeing this. I don't care. You want to talk about a weak tag team division? Look at everyone in this match. And I don't care how talented someone's going to go. Oh, they're so talented. Look at the way everyone's been used. Do you care about any of these tag teams? You barely care about the champions. And the people who just lost the belt lost all their heat in the last few weeks. Or not heat, maybe mojo in the last few weeks.
Yes.
So no, I didn't watch this and I didn't care. Yeah, I agree. You know what? Jarrett and Lethal versus Top Flight would have been great, and this crowd would have eaten it up.
Yeah, this crowd, they might have got people over the fucking rail. They were so emotional, but that would have been, and that would have, again, that's what I'm saying. If you're not going to use Jay Lethal, I don't know why they're not using Jeff and Jay as a top tag team now for the very teaching moments that I've talked about. But if you're not going to use Jay Lethal as a single in a prominent position, and you've got them teamed up, yes, them versus Top Flight not only would have torn the house down, but it would have taught those kids something. Or them, well, I'm sure the Lucha Brothers think they know what they're doing and wouldn't learn anything, and I wouldn't want to do that to Jeff and poor Jay, but nevertheless. The big announcement that had been milked and announced that it was going to take place from Tony Khan took place with Renee Moxley Good standing with Tony, who was wearing his big boy clothes. He looked like he was having his school picture taken that day, didn't he?
I guess if he left his hairbrush somewhere.
Well, but the kids like the funky hairdos and everything.
He looks like he's a mess. What kid? He's close to my age.
He's still a kid to me. And apparently to Nick Khan, too. But he's got Michael Richards is doing his fucking hairstyling. But he was wearing a suit. So, but they had announced there was going to be a big announcement. Tony Khan was going to have a big announcement. And as we'll talk about, maybe that played a part in the shocking ratings revelation. And we've again talked about it before, that Tony needs to stay off camera, and Tony is not a pleasing television or broadcast media personality, whatever the case. And I think somebody else has told him that also, because luckily Renee goes to him for the big announcement, and he gets out without embarrassing himself or looking particularly awkward or out of place, that it is a big announcement, and that's why he has one of the top talents on the AEW roster here to give it. This man. And he just stepped right out, and here comes Adam Cole. And so Tony's getting smarter. Now, that maybe hopefully won't be Adam Cole's role from now on. Hopefully he'll get back in the ring. But yes, Tony, you need somebody that's well-spoken on television to be able to make some of these revelations. It will make it sound bigger and more professional than if you do it. That's just the advice we've been giving you. So I'm glad somebody got you to follow it in this case. But the big announcement, and what you had told me a couple of things that the fans may have been anticipating that they thought it might be, and I can't remember what you said. What did they think it was going to be? They didn't really think it was going to be this.
Well, we heard from some people thought it was going to be a streaming service announcement of some sort. Either AEW content will be available with the Ring of Honor thing or through Warner Brothers Discovery, just something like that. That seemed to be the biggest, the most anticipated announcement.
And then they always hope that Tony's going to announce that every New Japan wrestler and employee has moved to Cleveland and will be appearing weekly. And they thought there might be, but nobody knew what it was, but they were anticipating, or a big, free agent signing. Who are those people even now? But the revelation by Adam Cole, who did a wonderful job at it, was there's going to be a new reality show about AEW after Dynamite, starting whenever the fuck. What is all access type of deal? Can any show expose the backstage machinations of the wrestling business more than Dynamite itself, Brian, in your opinion?
Well, we're about to find out. Suddenly I miss Roads to the Top.
I was about to say, Roads to the Top was doing about half the numbers, as I recall, of whatever Dynamite was doing when Roads to the Top was on. I remember us making that comment at some point. Oh, God. I can't imagine what this is going to look like.
This week's rating is a little different than it's been for a while. How many people are going to stay around after the end of Dynamite? How many people that are still there at the end are going to stay around for another hour of behind-the-scenes documentary work?
Which do you think, now that they've got this going on and Cody's not there to bring some semblance of professionalism into things, are they just going to, the Buckaroos just going to hand TBS the Being the Elite YouTube clip for the week? Here's our reality show. I mean, the Rampage numbers are down to about where that might be cheaper for them in the long run. But so that's the new reality show after Dynamite, coming soon.
What was this? We have a big announcement. Let's go to Tony. Where was he? In the hotel? Where was this filmed?
Renee was there, and she'd been in the building earlier.
Renee was dressed like Marilyn Monroe on top of the subway grate. What was going on there? And then Adam Cole comes in the first time we've seen him with all of his hair down. Looks like a fucking Cowardly Lion. To say nothing. A big announcement about nothing. He's still not wrestling. Oh, no, he is coming back to wrestle, actually. That is the one thing he said. He's coming back soon.
But he said that before.
I'm not really... I don't know. You liked this a lot better than I liked it.
Well, no, I'm not saying I liked it. I'm saying that what this was better than what it would have been if Tony told us the same story. Now, can you deny that?
I think, because I don't think Jim Ross would work right now, they should make Tony Schiavone the AEW on-air supervisor of some sort. You want to make it something that people aren't going to think it's going to be a gimmick. And it's not going to be a heel turn. Something. Because I don't like Tony Schiavone on commentary, but I think he could be effective in a role like that if he showed some balls on camera once, and not his real ones, but if he showed some balls on camera every now and then.
Yeah, because I've seen his real ones, and they're not that impressive.
But what was the point of Tony Khan announcing this, that he has a big announcement, then handing it off? Why was this filmed away from the fans?
Because he can't speak enough English to do that properly. That's what I've.
Why was this filmed away from the fans? And I think we can go back to that too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people hung out with this show thinking that there was going to be some kind of major announcement. And it was no major announcement. This was a tweet. This was a tweet for a segment.
And as a matter of fact, and when we get to the ratings, we'll see that he may have found the fucking answer to his woes. Just promise him something every week is going to be big, and at the end of the show, they find out it ain't big, but how many weeks they're going to work. Nevertheless, we will continue. We'll get to that in a second, because after this major announcement that was milked until 9:45 Eastern Time, 15 minutes before the show went off the air, we come to our main event. The main event, the highlight of this parade of terror, going through the old Simmons mansion, the horribleness and awfulness of it will never be forgotten. And the most terrifying part was the main event that we got. We got John Plumber Moxley taking on Pizzeria Uno of the Dark Order in a single match as a main event of a nationally televised wrestling program. And at least by the time they did the entrances in the break and came back up, we only had 8 minutes on the air because they knew what they were going to get anyway. And you got to give it to him. Old Fat Uno, he thinks he knows what he's doing, and he was trying his best, but it looked like they took some fat guy from the Golden Corral, dressed him up in a Halloween outfit, and told him to go out and beat the piss out of a homeless guy under an overpass. That, again, visually, is the opinion that anybody that doesn't already live in this bubble would have had if they see this. And it's embarrassing. And then it's every. I know that they used to be the Super Smash Brothers. Him and the other guy that I get. The other guy had some athleticism and looked decent, and I guess they ran him off. But this fucking fat clown, they've always been the indie-rific wrestling-minded types. But Moxley to me is worse because he encourages this shit. And he encourages the worst instincts of the modern guys to go out and do the matches with the thumbtacks and the barbed wire and the light tubes and the whole fucking, death match deal with the bank-addicted drug robber. He fucking fantasizes about that, Moxley does. And he leads these guys into things, and it's okay. But this whole promotion, basically, what would it be like if, Brian, you love baseball? What would it be like if the New York Mets, just because a lot of people liked some local bum in Brooklyn, if they put some fat guy on the team that couldn't play baseball and looked like shit and was 15 years older than the rest of the fucking guys on the team and just was pretty much embarrassing to look at, but yeah, a bunch of guys around town like him, so we'll put him on the team. What would you, as a baseball fan, think of that?
Well, for the record, Dan Vogelback dropped a lot of weight apparently in the offseason, but no, it would be ridiculous. It would be ridiculous. The people who are on the Mets are, you would think, and as every Major League Baseball team is supposed to have, the very best that this franchise has to offer, which is the very best the nation has to offer.
If you're a kid or a young person or anybody that hasn't seen baseball before and are watching a game to decide whether you might be a fan of baseball in general or this team in particular, and you see the fucking fat guy, do you take it seriously or do you go, I guess anybody can do this?
Well, there have been gimmicks in the past. Bill Veeck used to have, You know, he had the shortest baseball player in history. Like, he did various things to fuck with the game just to draw a house, which pissed off a lot of the baseball purists, and there's a reason why you don't have a lot of that all over baseball.
Well, we got it all over us here, and I'll tell you what, it don't take a lot of their gravy to go all over my plate. So anyway, Uno starts out biting Moxley while he's wearing a mask that covers his entire mouth. And then Fat Ass took his jacket off, and his boobs are bigger than half the female roster, and his ass is wide enough to show a drive-in movie on. Every time he ran across the ring hitting the ropes, I was afraid he was going to black both his eyes. Again, Moxley ripped the guy's mask. People are booing Moxley now, at least, so they've figured out he's the heel. At one point, Fat Ass cannonballed Moxley off the top to the floor. And I even felt sorry for Moxley at having that fucking sack of wheat landing on him from that height. And then he threw like a dozen fake punches at Moxley's head, and most of them missed plainly and obviously because they had a close-up of it. I don't know what, again, indie wrestlers. And of course, then Moxley had to get juice on the guy, so he run his head in the stairs, and then he walked away to draw the attention of the camera and the crowd. And they almost had it on this one, but apparently old Pizzeria Uno is not an experienced juice maker either, because he had so much tape on his goddamn blade. I guess he was afraid that he was going to lose it, that Moxley runs his head into the stairs and then walks away to draw the camera and the attention of the people and the fans, so you don't see Uno get the fucking deal off of his wrist. Except, how do I know he got it off his wrist? Because when Moxley walks back over to him to pick him up, there's like 6 or 8 inches of loose tape hanging off his fucking wrist where he's just taking it out. Oh my God. I don't know how you get 6 inches of loose tape from removing a blade. Anyway, but while then he distracts while Fat Ass gets his color, Moxley goes over and flips a bird to people on camera. And then at one point, Moxley gets on Fat Ass and cross-faces him over and over, and the guy just stands up and picks Moxley up and hits a beautiful pile driver on him, and a second one. Beautiful pile, and got a 2 count. What the fuck? And then the guy's got so much juice that now Moxley gets the sleeper choke on him, and he's squeezing the blood out of the guy's head, so it's squirting out on the mat, and the referee stops it. Moxley won't let go, so now he's a full-fledged heel. And here comes the other dork orders in, and they get on Moxley, but Claudio and Useless come in and get in a fucking fight, but Hangnail Page's music plays, and he jumps on Moxley with about 1,000 punches to the head, and Moxley doesn't sell them, and then, I swear to God, I'm not making this up, Page pulls out of his pocket or somewhere loops of barbed wire that he puts around his fist and punches Moxley in the head.
How stupid is that?
And, well, Moxley bleeds, but Page's hand miraculously doesn't. I'm telling you, it's this indie wrestling fucking mental disease that they've all got, that they've lost track of goddamn common sense, logic, and reality. And they've fostered an audience that will watch this if it's silly and hokey and fake, because that's what they think wrestling is supposed to be. And that's why that the WWE is still with the bloodline angle and story is still the most boring wrestling show I've ever seen right now. And they still can't win the fucking war because they won't get their heads out of their fucking indie-rific friends' asses. So there you go. So, and by the way, when he punches Moxley, everybody that's got this on DVR or whatever, slow-mo the punch. You could see it regular speed if you pay attention, but in slow motion, Page got this loop of barbed wire around his fist. And of course, he knows that if he makes any contact, not only is he going to rip Moxley open, but also he's going to stick his shit in his hand. So as he swings with his right hand, he puts his left hand up completely over Moxley's forehead and then punches with the barbed wire right fist straight over the top of Moxley's head, about 3 inches over the top, completely. Don't do shit you don't know how to do, baby.
Like book a wrestling show.
And so then Moxley's gushing blood by the time the thing's over. He gets 30 seconds of his juice on camera and they're off the air. Your thoughts on this embarrassing, self-indulgent display of indie wrestling fucking outlaw bullshit?
You know, the only thing I don't have a problem with, which may surprise you, is I don't have a problem with Evil Uno's look or weight. Because there have been plenty of fat guys in wrestling, and quite frankly, I want people to look like that. I'd rather
have
not
you ever, even Abdullah had enough weight that you could hurt, he could hurt you with it, but have you ever seen a bigger ass and a smaller set of shoulders?
Well, that's besides the point. I'm okay with him looking different than everyone else.
But I
agree with almost everything else you said. I didn't care about this match, and I tried to watch it, and it was terrible. Moxley, while some people think he's Wrestler of the Year, without any exaggeration, because we don't really see Bray Wyatt wrestle much, I think Jon Moxley, I would put as the worst Wrestler of the Year. And I'm talking this year now and last year. His matches are terrible. Anyone who likes his matches, it's the Steve Austin kicking people in the corner thing. Yeah. They're willing to overlook the fact that he's a terrible wrestler, his matches make no sense, and he's unprofessional and does stuff like blade in front of the camera multiple times within months. No. It's the fucking Dark Order and the fucking Blackpool people with no one from Blackpool. No, I don't give a shit. And no, they've done nothing to make me give a fuck about any of this. I don't want to.
No. Okay.
Moxley's terrible. It's incredible. It is to steal from CM Punk, and here we are, the cult of Cornette. It's the cult of personality. People like the persona of Mox to the point where it mentally makes them think he's actually having good matches. It's insane.
But how do you get that far to like that persona? He looks like a bum. He looks like a goddamn somebody that would be sleeping in a sleeping bag under an overpass physically. His matches, as you said, have a lot of problems. And it's the same shit all the time. And you can't, Austin stomping the guy, the mud hole in the corner looked a little fucking specious, but a lot of Austin shit looked good. And he connected with a wide variety of people. Yeah, I can see that. But who wants to be this bum?
Not I.